The one who lived in my home. The year was 2001. I was 11 years old and my mom invited a man over to our rented townhome. His name was Don. Don and my mom were outside on the back porch, which I could see from where I was standing in the kitchen, through the bay window past the dining room table. I made myself chicken noodle soup with a side of crackers. I made my way to the dining room table with my soup and crackers and sat at the seat facing my mom and our guest. Without thinking much about the two of them, I was nearing the end of my soup, which was my favorite part. Moist crushed up crackers using the last bit of brothy goodness to make a cracker stew. As I'm shoveling stew to mouth, I look up, having forgotten they were still in my line of sight. My mom is talking, but behind the glass, she's merely a mime. I glance over to her guest, and he is staring right at me. I look away and look back, but all the while, he's holding his gaze. For the first time, my stew concoction was no longer appetizing. I immediately felt embarrassed. After Dawn left, I told her that he was looking at me while I ate, and how uncomfortable that made me feel. "Really?" she asked. "He probably just thought you were cute." At the time, I remember thinking to myself that he probably thought I was gross for the way I ate, and for what I ate. At that time and age, that's about as much sense as I could make of him. That next year, my mom officially began dating Don, whom I would only see on occasion. Fast forward a couple of years, and my mom bought a home for the two of us. The year was 2004. I was 14 years old. As soon as we moved into our new house, it seemed as though Don was always around. According to my mom, he had his own place, but he might as well have been living there. It was very rare that he wasn't there. Yes, he would leave for work, but other than that, when I was home after school and on the weekends, he was there too. Another thing that we found strange, we never met his kids. He had 2 adult sons, nor any of his family. He also had a ridiculous schedule, to where he would leave at 4 a.m. every morning to golf, supposedly. And he always carried around this heavy-ass mesh briefcase. We never saw what was in it, but the one time my mom asked, he said, "I like to record myself practicing my golf swing." Around this time, it was the summer before my freshman year of high school. A friend of mine invited me to her birthday party, which was a welcome invitation to get me out of the home where I felt like an outsider. Just before summer started, I had been dating a boy for about a week. Unfortunately for him, I wound up really liking his best friend. His best friend and I dated for the next 5 years, but back then, the week-long ex-boyfriend wanted to get revenge. Turns out, he had friends that were at the same birthday party. They all banded together to help him see his plan through. Fast forward to the birthday party, and we're all having a blast, dancing to Destiny's Child, and all acting like what we were, 14-year-old girls. 2 of the girls were taking photos of the shenanigans. They then turned their attention to me and a few other girls near me. "Jump in the air or do something crazy so we can get some good action shots." So I did. We all did. The 2 girls were reviewing the photos and began chuckling. Curious, I walked over to see the shots they got. Now, again, it was 2004, and point-and-shoot cameras just came out with a newly added feature, video. When I made my way over, they didn't even try to hide it. They played the 11-second video for me. It was of me. Only me. I was horrified. I asked them to delete it, to which they declined. They sent that video to the vengeful ex-boyfriend, who gave it to a high school kid who had a well-known blog that was frequented by the high schoolers at the high school I was starting in the next few months. Blog Boy then added it to his blog, and it was distributed to everyone in my little world. I began getting AIM messages from anonymous users telling me, "Kill yourself," and "Nobody likes you." My little world was collapsing around on me. Then came the first month of high school. People who I had never seen nor met were recognizing me. People had the URL of the video written up the length of their arm. I was in hell. I would go home and cry. I begged my mom to let me go to another school, which she nearly did. But instead, my mom reached out to Blog Boy and pretty much scared the living shit out of him, prompting him to remove the video. The video was down, but my fear was still up. I was fearful of the unwanted attention, and the anger and violence that I perceived. My mom, being an only parent, my dad was 100% out of the picture at this point, was not home much. I always considered myself a latchkey kid and had a driver's permit when I was 15, to get myself to and from school. So while the video was no longer active, my fear and paranoia were in full effect. A lot of times, Dawn would be home even if my mom wasn't home from work yet. This night, however, it was just me. Vividly, I remember being home alone late at night, feeling the blood rush away from my face and the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I was being watched. I couldn't confirm it, but I felt it in my bones. I turned off all of the lights, locked the game room door, and sat back down on the couch, making sure I slid down enough to ensure that if someone was peering through the back window behind the couch, they couldn't see the top of my head. Because, in my paranoid state, if they could see the top of my head, it would have been an easy kill shot. This level of paranoia became my new normal. Every night, for example, when it was time to change into my pajamas, I would do so by going into my bedroom closet, shutting the door behind me, and getting onto my knees to change. The smaller I could make myself, the safer I was. All the while, Don began vamping up the creep vibes. When my mom wasn't home, he would compliment me on parts of my body or would offer me back massages. One time, I caught him looking at porn while it was just the two of us in the game room while I was watching TV. I told my mom everything, and not all at once, but after every individual instance. And every single time, she would say the same things: "He's just being nice," or "I'm sure it wasn't porn. It was probably just a bikini ad or something." The last time I remember telling her about one of his creepy moments, as she tried to make sense of everything, she said, "You know, Don thinks maybe you're just jealous that there's now a man in the picture." At this point, I wasn't even trying to hide the fact that I hated him. And he hated it. The sound of his voice was like nails on a chalkboard, and I attempted to avoid him at all costs. I didn't care if he thought I was a bitch. His existence disgusted me and I wanted him to know it. Mornings started to become more difficult. I was so groggy I couldn't even stand to do my hair and makeup anymore. One morning I pushed myself too hard, passed out, and woke up face down on the tile floor in my bathroom. I had a bruise on the left side of my face for a week. Some nights later, as I was laying in my bed, which was pushed up against a wall just under a window, I heard footsteps. With every slow step, I heard a crunch. Leaves crackling underfoot. Blinds do their job from afar, but up close, the routed holes in the blind slats are begging to be peeped through. I pulled my blanket over my head and imagined I was anywhere else. From the cyberbullying and my home life, I was no longer myself. I wasn't a 15-year-old girl anymore. When I hung out with friends, I felt removed. There was an innocence in the air that I was witnessing, but not able to participate in. So I stopped hanging out with pretty much everyone. I didn't feel safe at home, but I didn't feel safe anywhere else either. And my paranoia wasn't fading away. I was still always on high alert. One afternoon after school, I saw a circular, red-tinted, convex-looking piece of glass that was in the door frame of my bathroom. It was no more than a centimeter wide, but I had never noticed it before. I called my mom at work. "Mom, I think there's a hidden camera in my bathroom." She told me she would look when she got home. I assumed she would sweep this under the rug too, but I was wrong. The second she got home from work, she asked me to show her. I took her straight to it. She said to me, "Oh, that's always been there." But later that same night, when I went to brush my teeth before bed, it looked like the round thing was missing. I thought it was odd that, if it had always been there, why was it missing now? My mom and I never talked about it again. Not until I had repressed memories that surfaced when I was 18. I had completely forgotten about the hidden camera and Don's creepiness until it all came pouring out at 18, and I had questions. So I asked my mom, was there a hidden camera in my bathroom when I was a kid? This was not a one and done type of conversation. For a while, she wanted nothing to do with this conversation. She would tell me, there are some things a mother should never tell her child, all the while, I'm on the other end of the phone sobbing. Until one day, when I asked, she spilled it all, and she was not holding back. Back when I was a kid, I remember waking up in the dead of night, to Don in my room watching me. He walked out of my room at basically the exact moment I had woken up. As my mom and I were talking about this when I was 18, she told me she believed he had been drugging me. She said, you always had your water glasses that you would just leave around the house. This was purely speculation, but I had only ever passed out once in my life, and it was while Dawn was living with us. So I asked her why she told me that the camera thing in the door frame had always been there. The next part of the story is from my mom's point of view. When my mom got home, I took her right to the hidden camera. Turns out, it was a motion detector. She looked up into the air vent above my bathroom door, which didn't even occur to me. She saw a camera in the vent. She told me, no, that's always been there, but did not allude to the camera at all. Her number one priority at that point was to protect me. She didn't remove the motion detector the same day, but she said she put putty over it. That night, she didn't sleep at all. While Don was sleeping beside her, she got up, went to his car, found his briefcase and tried to open it. Of course, it was locked, but in the front pocket was a VHS tape. She grabbed the VHS, walked back to her room, quietly opened her sock drawer, slipped the VHS under her socks, quietly closed the drawer, and slid back into bed. She laid awake until his 3 a.m. alarm. From then until he left for work, she pretended to be asleep as to not raise his suspicions. And finally, he left, or so she thought. She grabbed the tape and opened her bedroom door to be startled by the attic ladder being down. She told me, recalling that morning, I knew he was in the attic and I had to say something. She was never up that early and he knew that. She asked him, what are you doing up there? He replied, just changing the air filter. After he left for the morning, she went to my bathroom and saw that he had been up in the attic removing the video camera, with nothing but duct tape left behind. She thinks he saw the putty over the motion detector and decided to do some damage control. She went to the living room and put the VHS in the tape player. She hit play. That's when she saw it, me naked in my bathroom. She ejected the tape and said she was nearly sick. She called him immediately, in a rage. How long have you been filming my daughter? He tried to play dumb. She told him she was throwing his shit out, and told him, if you ever come near me or my daughter again, I will fucking kill you. He emailed her later that day to try and justify what he did. He told her, anytime I don't give it out would give me dirty looks or talk back, I could say to myself, that's okay. I've got one on you.